Hello and welcome to the Texas Day Peru Secret Sauce Podcast. I'm Kevin Briggs, and for those of you who don't know, Texas Day Peru, we send teams of surgeons down to Peru every year to help the poor get surgical care that they otherwise wouldn't need. The other thing we do down there, besides changing lives and having a lot of fun, is we help pre-med students get into med school. I'll talk more about that later in the episode. If you're interested in volunteering, we're always looking for volunteers. The other thing that we do on the Secret Sauce is we basically highlight our guests and highlight secret sauce and lessons for business and life, and see if we can find some applicability for everybody else in the audience. And today we have, I'm thrilled to death, frankly. We have a tremendously accomplished professional. I have worked with and for him back in the good old days. Wonderful to have aboard. Please welcome, there's no audience to clap, but Mark, thank you, and welcome, Mark Phinick. Welcome to the Texas Day Peru Secret Sauce Podcast.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure. And thank you for what you're doing.
Well, that's kind of you. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to death to have you on here. Kind of the genesis of this particular podcast was I was trying to archive little tips and hints and lessons that I've learned professionally over the years and share them with my sons. But when I start looking at all the stuff that you post and what you do, I had to have Mark on this show. This is too good to do. So for folks that don't know you, Mark, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do now?
Sure. So Kevin, as you know, so I've spent a career in enterprise software sales and retired 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I guess, to launch a second act, for lack of a better term, which is largely centered on paying it forward, helping those without our sales insights and experience and success learn from us. And so I work with I help health tech, I help fintech, I help a lot of different types of organizations. I help individual sellers all close deals faster. And I don't want to alienate anybody who's not a salesperson. I work with a lot of people on career advancement, on just helping individuals increase their lot in life. If there's an opportunity for me to help, I tend to jump in.
Thank you for sharing that. And by the way, I know a lot of what we're talking about is geared specifically for salespeople, but the reality is, if you want to be successful in anything you need to do in life, you need to be able to convince people of your way of thinking. You need to be able to lead without influence. You need to be able to differentiate. You need to be able to build trust. And by the way, that's not just for salespeople. That's in life in general. So one of the things that we like to ask folks on this thing, are there any particular passion projects? Obviously, I've got mine, but are there any particular passion projects that are important to you?
Yeah. So I think you know this from working together, but I've I've always loved watching particular junior sellers or graduates, or just people who are striving to get ahead. I've always enjoyed collaborating with them, helping them reach their potential, and then watching it happen. And there's nothing that gives me greater joy than 2 minutes before New Year's getting a text from a client or a former employee or teammate or a partner, wishing me a happy new year before they call their grandma, before they call their mom. And I always tell them, call your mom, don't call me. But the passion project isn't the call. The passion project is watching these individuals, as I mentioned before, increase their lot in life, whatever metric that is. It's helping them achieve what they want.
Oh, that's wonderful. And if you think about it, sometimes when you've helped somebody throughout that year, and that January 30th call, particularly for somebody who's achieved their number, that's a nice call to have.
Well, I'm talking American New Year, so that would be December 31st.
What did I say?
January, but that's okay.
Well, we're adopting a new calendar, so it's
New
a work in
calendar, no more
progress.
Gregorian. We're good, man.
There we go. There you go. You know, in a lot of the things that you've put in print, you've said a lot of buying decisions happen in rooms that sellers never see. Can you give me an example of a situation where you were able to help somebody win an internal conversation, and you know how you navigated through that, and what you meant by being not being in rooms that where decisions actually get made?
Sure. So what I have found, and I think most people would agree that is that just to start with the premise is that the people that find you in enterprise sales are not the ones who fund you. That's the
Yeah.
case not only large enterprises but small, any type of B2B. So what I've always found is that the biggest leak in B2B sales isn't what happens on calls; it's what happens after.
Uh-huh.
Champions leave the room, convinced perhaps, and then their boss asks three questions. Why now? What's the risk? What's the payback? And if they can't answer those without me in the room, that deal dies. So yeah, that's what I typically find, and I've helped numerous clients help equip their champions to accomplish exactly this, which is basically go stand up in front of a CFO and explain exactly how this is going to help improve the business.
Yeah. You've said that enterprise deals aren't won through persuasion, but through risk reduction. Um, what moment proved that for you? And what kind of change would you coach folks for on that?
So we call that scar tissue. I've learned that a lot. So I'll share one story with you. I once demonstrated a solution that had outperformed our competitor in every way imaginable: speed, simplicity, scalability. And then later I learned that they were already deep into negotiations with those higher up, ironically, at about 10 times our price. So I kind of paused everybody who I was working with, and I said, so let's take a step back, and let's revisit why you're buying this in the first place. And we had discussed the fact that they had a multitude of different ERP systems that were disconnected. And what was happening was they would get a discount from a particular vendor in APAC that was different than the discount they were receiving in Latin America. And they wanted to rationalize that. And in doing so, through asking, why do you want to do that? What we uncovered was that if they did integrate all these different systems, they would be able to reduce their annual spend by 2% a year, their IT spend, by simply, if a vendor is giving 6% discount here and 4% here, they were able to extrapolate that. And what it wound up being was, if the annual spend was $16 billion, that's $320 million a year in savings. Right. So, when I ask, when is the other group promising that, and we learned that was going to be about a 3-year payback period, I simply asked who in the building would be interested in seeing that return this fiscal quarter. And that was a very, very pivotal
provocative
moment.
question. Yeah.
Well, and it worked, and we won. And when I went to pick up the order, I remember them thanking me for helping them save $9 million just on the purchase price. And then we ultimately delivered on what was promised. So,
gotcha. That, it kind of, you're bringing up kind of a balancing game psychologically with buyers. How much is the reward for what they're gonna do versus the what if it fails? And it's like, if that hurdle rate isn't there, the project doesn't happen. If there's not executive sponsorship, that doesn't happen. If there's not change management, that doesn't happen. But boy, I tell you, instant gratification is so much better than delayed gratification in a selling cycle, isn't it?
it is.
So, tell me about a deal that, looked dead, but you still close. I mean, we all have deals in our pipeline that we would like to, bring back to life somehow that may have died. What do you see that would, in that situation, what I'm kind of curious about is what shifted in that buyer's organization. How did you approach the situation and help the champion overcome it a little bit?
Yeah. And I love how you phrased it, because you didn't ask the question about a deal that was lost. It's interesting in sales, we never admit to losing deals. Those are the deals that we walked from. But deals do get stalled, and they look dead at some point. So I do remember, and this is one of my favorite customers. He's just a prince. It's a gentleman who, on the last day of the quarter, decided to text me that my price was $300,000 too high, and that we would have to pick things up next quarter. And I texted him back. I said, I'm going to be there in 30 minutes to talk this through. I was there in about 15, and he kept me waiting for about an hour before coming out and asking me, what do I want to talk about? And candidly, I said, what do you think I want to talk about? We've been working for months with your teams. We structured a mutual action plan. Everybody did their roles. We got security approval. We got finance approval. Everything is teed up. You have your price that we agreed on. And he paused me and he said, do I have your best price? And those who know me know this story. What I did was I pulled out a $1 bill from my pocket, and I wrote my home phone number on it. And I gave it to him, and I said, that's my home phone number. If you ever need me 24/7, you just give me a call. But now you have my best price. And he signed the order, not signed this, he turned around, hit the keyboard, and processed the order. That dollar bill, by the way, is still pinned to his wall. So we've remained friends. He just needed to know that he had our best price, which is a very, very important step in the sales cycle.
Yeah. So when you talk about, it really is kind of a bold move. I wish I could say that I was that bold in most of my sales cycle. I probably behaved much like most salespeople. So, well, let me see if I can't lower someplace else. And not only are you killing your deal and killing your price and killing your credibility and killing your situation where you're doing a disservice to the client. And if there's real value in what you're doing, the price is the price. But anyway, so when you talk about the conversation,
to what end? To what end? It's just going to keep going down and down and down. But they're doing their jobs by asking that question. They need to know, do they have their best price? So one of the things I coach reps on is, as soon as the customer has their best price, just tell them, let's stop wasting time. The price you're going to get is the same price I'm giving you today. If we wait a week, a month, whatever it is, you have our best price. All you're doing now is delaying the business outcomes that we're talking about helping you deliver. So I do try to put it back on them.
So So this next question kind of leads to that, but one question I have before that: did you know or sense that that was what was going on? That he was looking for that?
No clue. No clue. No clue. When I tell you we were buttoned up, ready to roll, I mean, I had forecast this to my boss. I had forecasted to my wife. We had implementation scheduled. Nope. This was a Friday afternoon. I'm assuming. Friday afternoon, got that text, and the world froze.
Well,
that was a long drive. That 15 minutes, man, everything that went through my head. And I'll just share with you, nowhere in. I'm just glad I had a dollar bill. I don't have cash now. I'm glad I did that.
You know, if you think about it, though, you satisfied something important from two things important psychologically. One, did he get the lowest price, which is obvious. And then the second, that dollar bill is ensuring that day one after the sale, the first day of buyer's remorse is going to be mitigated by your phone number.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I should also point out, he's used that number a bunch of times, not because of problems with the product. We're just friends now.
Yeah.
So it worked out just great.
You know, I've been fortunate that so many of my customers in my career have ended up being friends as well. And that really is, and I know you're in the same situation, but that really is a testament to the value that you're hopefully bringing occasionally, or at least hopefully I was bringing occasionally.
Well, so that's the goal. That's the goal.
So I was reading in one of your posts, and you talked about conversion being the real problem, not somebody's pipeline. So how do you prove that to a CFO? And how can you walk me through the math or an example of how you used to show the cost of inaction versus the cost of upside change?
Sure. So I'll make it simple. So if you have a $3 million pipeline with a 20% close rate, that's $600,000 closed. If you increase conversions by 30%, that's $900,000 in revenue. So it's the same number of leads, just 50% more revenue. So if you go back to the fact that, you know, your conversion rate is everything. Everybody, I will share with you, every single client that I work with has interest in their product. If they don't, and there's no pipeline, they probably have little use for me. I'm not a fractional CRO. I'm not a lead gen person. I'm not a sales trainer. I work with reps on live deals. And so that's where I'm coming from, is the conversion rate is where we focus. And it's proven to be very successful. Two of my clients have, I should point out, two clients of mine have been able to raise additional funds by demonstrating this type of commitment to revenue. Two others have been acquired, and literally every rep who has engaged me, either as part of a team or as an individual using their company's continuing education funds, they've all sold more as a result of this focus.
I tell you, I really love the service that you're doing.
Thank you.
As an individual rep or an individual seller, I mean, frankly, we're scared to death to have these conversations with our bosses sometimes. And a lot of times our bosses are too busy basically making the numbers all line up and basically rolling upstairs to their organization, that to do that actual coaching level, or that deal level coaching, and that deal level work, it doesn't happen. And a lot of, I know that there have been times in my career where I've been so scared to death of looking stupid or being inadequate to the task that it's hard to ask for help. And, you know, you make that possible. You provide a really good psychological counseling service there that I certainly could use in my career.
You bring up a really good point, because sales leaders have enough on their plate. not only do they have to have accurate and predictable forecasts by cadencing reps, holding people accountable, sometimes those are quite animated discussions bordering on, brute force. I did that throughout my career. I don't like doing that anymore. I also don't like, managing sales stages and CRM and prepping the board or prepping the CEO for the board meetings. There's a lot of work that a sales leader is just better at than I am. I like complimenting them where their outcomes are predictability, efficiency, productivity. My outcomes are revenue and conversion.
Yeah.
They're both needed. I'm just a helping hand to that individual, whether it's a sales manager in the field or it's a CRO or it's a founder.
I think it's of extreme value. So shifting gears back to, inside the deal a little bit. Once you've identified a true believer or a champion, and this is particularly sensitive to me because I've made this mistake and relied on my champion alone and not sold up the chain. What's the hardest thing about helping them sell up the chain, and how do you keep the momentum when procurement or finance step in to basically slow down deals?
Sure. So I used to get a kick out of some of the companies I've worked for where sales management, that was their mantra: call higher, call higher, call higher. The reality is that, so I don't know, I've helped organizations like General Motors and others buy tens of millions of software, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of software over the years. And I got to tell you, I don't have the CEO of General Motors on my speed dial. I don't play squash with Mark Zuckerberg or these other execs, but I've done business with all their organizations. They all have people to work with vendors. So I don't think that the issue is belief. I think the issue is finding a credible or finding a technical advocate who has political capital and helping them deal with the bureaucracy of their employers. They lose momentum when deals hit financial review. So I help them translate their enthusiasm into the product into CFO safe language. Risk quantification, ROI validation, risk aversion. Every dollar that you can quantify and reduce in risk has tremendous value back to the organization. So to the degree that we can help them put together their emotional connection to the solution and tie that with an economics connection, put together a forwardable proposal that's going to land without the need for me being there. We've helped them achieve their business outcomes, and we never had to, resort to going over somebody's head or alienating people. This is all about helping them achieve their desired business outcomes.
There's so much innovation and creativity that happens at that point if you're doing it right. I did that video. I've done a little cue card, but the thing that you hit on that I think is most critical there, and I agree with you 100%, you've got to put it in the language that CFO wants to hear. What's the upside? What's the risk? What happens if we don't do it? What happens if we do it? And do we have a plan? And if you satisfy those things, you might have something there. So,
and I would also argue it's not just math, right?
No.
Organizations use math to justify emotional connection to a solution. People working over the weekends to solve a problem, customer retention. These are all emotional things. Yes, there's KPIs, but they result in math. So I do always encourage reps, and I coach them on how to have emotional connection to a problem, a solution, as well as a economic connection that satisfies
Yeah.
the CFO and finance.
That's an excellent point to bring up. It really, really is. What do you think, or what have you seen that senior buyers actually want to see, or what do they notice first? And what is it that they're quietly ignoring?
Sure. Well, I can speak uh, with experience what they don't want to see. So just imagine you've got a group of people in an audience for the first time meeting you. They're coming at this having done something else. Maybe it's Monday morning and they had problems at home, or they had or they have problems at work. An employee left, or they just got yelled at from their boss. There's something else going on in their head. Now all of a sudden they're coming to a Zoom meeting, and oh my God, here's this vendor. He's
Yeah.
going to sell me something. The last thing they want to see in the first slide is everything about you.
Yeah.
Here's who we are. Here's who funded us. Here's our VCs. Here's our logo slide. Oh my goodness. What they need to know in the first slide is that you've done your research and you can tell me, where am I broken? What's it costing me? What what fixing it looks like, so that I immediately focus back on what you're talking about. That's how you earn a room. Um,
Hmm.
they ignore adjectives. They ignore feature dumps. You'll get to how you do things once you've earned their support for why you're doing it. You're selling the hole, not the shovel. I'm sorry to use a overused cliche,
No,
but that's
no,
what
that's a
they
good
need
one.
to understand. Yeah, that's what they need to understand, is how you're going to help them improve their business, which ultimately, candidly, needs to translate into how are you going to help me increase revenue, reduce cost, and lower risk.
Yeah. So, time for the crystal ball. 2026 is coming, well, just a few short days from now, assuming our viewers are going to be watching it now, not a few months later. I hope they watch it a few months later as well. But, everybody's seeing longer sales cycles, everybody's seeing tighter budgets. What specific behaviors or metrics do you think will separate teams that still close from those that stall?
Yeah. Well, I wish I did have a crystal ball, because, boy, I certainly could not have predicted where we are with cost cutting measures being driven by geopolitical issues. We've got tariffs right now that are increasing cost of my clients' customers. So they're
Yeah.
in cost cutting mode. We've got uh, just a lot of things happening right now. The shutdown is not helping those that are selling into governmental agencies. So
Yeah.
um, I think more and more you're going to see a reliance on uh, the financial side of things, and it's not only ROI, but it's the language of the CFO. It's the language of the C-suite that's talking in terms of their KPIs, their business imperatives, which, if you're selling to a larger publicly held organization, you can go to the investor analyst uh,
Hmm.
or investor relations site on their website, look at their 10K, or even better, hear what the CEO is telling their analysts about where their imperatives are. But you got to follow the money. And if you're not helping your organization, your clients improve their business through your solution, translating that into the language of the C-suite, you're probably not going to sell anything.
Yeah. I think you're dead right. And I think you're also right. There's so many headwinds that are out there that in many respects it's noise. Because when it gets right down to it, the things that they need are still cut costs and increase revenue, cut costs and increase revenue, provide value.
And lower risk, I'm finding, is
Oh yes, yeah.
that's lower risk is absolutely that's a overriding theme. Revenue and cost are what help us lower risk. So
Yeah.
to the degree that you can master that language, one last thing in closing, I'll share with you the advice I give all reps is go find an executive who wants you to win. Go find an executive who likes what you are offering,
Mm-hmm.
believes in you, not only your proposed business outcomes, but believes in you, and then ask them, how can I help your team internally? And I've done this so many times, Kevin. What I've learned and I've heard from senior executive after senior executive, it's a very consistent theme. What they need is starts with a technical advocate that's credible, who's going to be around through adoption. What they
Mm-hmm.
need is a business executive who's going to get the ROI and drive a business case. What they need is a clearly defined business case. And then they ultimately need a mutual actual action plan between all stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
action owners, dates, dependencies, risks that align the stakeholders, but also manage the impact of change, because
Yeah.
anything that they buy is going to change something.
You know, that really strikes a chord with me. I've seen a number of deals where there wasn't an appropriate change management process that happened,
Mm.
and there was a massive ROI on the deal. Yay! But if look, if you don't have a plan to manage the change properly, you're never going to achieve that ROI. It's just not
This
going
is
to happen. And
particularly important with AI.
yeah,
AI changes everything. And if you're
yeah,
selling anything, and everybody is selling an AI, but if you're selling anything to do with AI, what are you doing to facilitate that training and transformation to ensure that it's just not more shelfware or science experiments?
yeah.
These people need to see real ROI.
We see this in healthcare quite a bit, and it's
Absolutely.
kind of been the mantra for years and years and years and years. Hey, doctor, we've got this new app that's going to make your life a little sweeter. Well, the previous 8 apps promise the same thing. Is this app going to replace 2 or 3 of those previous 8 apps? Because I don't need any more. And
So it's interesting you bring up health tech. So one of my clients approached me. They provide an AI platform to help radiologists detect breast cancer
yeah,
faster.
uh-huh,
And they were very successful in getting mind share. Uh,
hmm,
Radiologists would spend more time with patients. They would reduce mortality rates. They would help women avoid unnecessary treatments. They had
hmm,
great trials going with large hospital systems, but they were not converting these into revenue. And I'm not a health tech specialist, although many of my clients over the years have been health tech. I simply asked the innocuous question: if this health system has your technology, and God forbid I or my family needs it, and we
hmm.
went there, how does that impact the business? Well, that's increased patient volume. Oh, okay. Let's write that down. What does that do to revenue? Oh, that's going to increase average revenue per patient. Oh, and that's where it starts. So that was the transition from selling to radiologists to selling through radiologists, equipping them to speak the language of the business.
Mark, man, this has been a lot of fun. Before I say goodbye, I need to do my obligatory commercial for Texas Day Peru for just a second. We need clinical volunteers. We need teams of surgeons. We need CRNAs. We need surgical tech people. We need RNs. But we also need non-clinical volunteers, business leaders who can basically, keep a herd of cats all pointed in the same direction. People who can lift a 50-pound bag and have a great attitude and have a desire to help some folks. It's not a lot of time. It only takes really 5 days out of one's schedule to put a to take and go down and do a team. And during that period of time, we can end up seeing about 300 to 350 patients, and end up doing surgeries for about 35 or 45. And you look at the magnifying effect of that. Each one of those patients as a family who's impacted positively by getting some healthcare that they otherwise weren't going to get. And then beyond that, what a change we get to make. And by the way, secret here, it's a lot of fun. So if you're interested in Texas Day Peru, if you're interested in finding a passion project of your own to jump on that passion project. But if you need one to borrow for a little while, we'd love to have volunteers. Check us out at www.texasdayperu.org. If you're a pre-med student and trying to get into med school, we help people get into med school. So give us a call on that front as well. Mark, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a whole lot of fun. It sure has been a fun time catching up, and I really appreciate you sharing these insights. They're awfully helpful for a lot of folks, and I hope people will call you up and ask for help, because I think it's a tremendous service that you're offering.
Thank you, Kevin, and I wish you the best. You're doing great work, and that's why I'm on this call. I'm grateful for how you're contributing back, and I wish you nothing but success.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.